closing arguments in the sham of the century and jury deliberation. Today might be the last day, I guess, right? I mean, if the jury comes back with a verdict, I don't think I'm going to be able to top last week's interviews, you know, Ben Whitty's, Norm. So I didn't really come here with that in mind, and I've already explored the difficulties of getting inside there. It just didn't make sense, or at least it didn't feel like it, to attempt to do anything like that. I just wanted to come over here and take the temperature of the maniacs, see who we've got. Now, it's interesting, they've got this open now. The cops don't really seem to do anything with too much consistency or, you know, logical application of a plan. They're just sort of doing whatever, whenever they want. There's been a lot of predictions. I mean, it's interesting because, like, when you get these predictions from whether it's Turley or Dershowitz or Andy McCarthy, or there's a lot of lawyers who are giving insights into what they think will happen. I mean, you know, Dershowitz was giving some, he's got his Dersh show, he's in a hotel, obviously, just talking about, you know, how the appeal is going to go and all that crap. But again, they're not taking any of the lawfare aspect into account. I wonder why they've opened this middle area. It's weird. I mean, this is a more sensible way for it to operate in terms of moving through the park, but it seems to, I guess it's over, basically. I mean, the protests aren't happening. I wanted to just see what was going on down in this park, because there's been maniacs here basically every day of this trial. Remember, we had the first day, that lady who we've now seen again in the Bronx the other day, and she had that kind of fat dude, I guess he's the bouncer or the whatever, with the Baphomet mask. So he, you know, he loves Satan. So it looks like they're letting the public in right now. That's that police line that, you know, the police were jackasses to me last week. If people watched the sponsor exclusive follow-up to one of my streams last week, the one where I was arguing with the detectives here about kicking those stupid people out of the Trump side, and then I saw that woman with the beard up at the Bronx as well. But if you were watching, if you're a sponsor of the show, you got to see my sponsor exclusive encounter with the maniacs and the police. You can go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth and get that. This dude is for whom the bell tolls. I mean, come on, that guy's a wacko. So are the cops putting all these wackos here? I mean, there's a lot of evidence that they are, right? We got a lot in the Bronx. So first of all, the same two ladies who have been disrupting in this park were there disrupting over there. Now people will say, oh, but Jason, you were there too. Yes, that is true, but there's a lot of other weird things that those people did. You'll notice when people come over here, I don't start putting banners and flags and signs in their face and telling them to, screaming at them and everything. You know, that woman could have just gone and gotten the police. That's what I did. I told the police, go tell these people to get the hell out of here. But I'm talking about that woman who on the very first day had a banner with 2 sticks and she had an accent, and I said, oh, you're obviously an immigrant. And she said, that's racist. I said, well, I'm not basing it on the fact that you're black, because there's plenty of people who are black and are born in New York and aren't immigrants, but on the basis of you being an adult and having an accent, it seems like you must have grown up somewhere else and then come here. And since it's not like a Louisiana accent, it sounds like you're from a foreign country. This is, you know, logical. Is that deduction? But she got all upset. And what I'm getting at is, it seems like those people were being corralled and handled by the NYPD community affairs. Those people who are in sort of the royal blue, there's like different uniforms, right? There's the real dark, almost black, real dark blue, sort of standard NYPD officer uniforms. Lieutenants wear the white shirts. We got a lot of New York courts police around here, so that's a different unit. That's not part of NYPD. You've got the Strategic Response Group, SRG, and I looked this up over the weekend as far as like what elements of the NYPD are involved in the JTTF, and it said the Special Response Group and the NYPD Intelligence Group. See, now that's interesting. Because, well, first of all, the JTTF, remember, is the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And the stated purpose of it is something basically that everybody wants to, work with the FBI. I don't know if people want that, but to thwart terrorism. And, working with the FBI for the cops, obviously, yeah, that makes sense. And there should be times that happens in ways that happens, but it's got to be very clearly understood by the public and strictly regulated, right? We can't just have the FBI come in there. John Cullen and I were talking on, maybe it was on Sunday's Web of Deception. People are loving that series, another sponsor exclusive. But we were talking about this. We found somebody had put it online, I guess a cop, somebody who realized this is unconstitutional and stupid, put it, oh, we got a fight with Giuliani over here. Oh, this guy's crazy.
Okay, I'm running into the courtroom.
That guy has been violent. Be careful.
We will see you later.
So we've seen this guy before, going crazy. Is Norm in the line? Is Ben Whitty's in this line? I mean, that's the thing. I don't know that even if I could speak to those guys again, I don't know that it would ever stand up to what we've already got. But the JTTF, the cops enter into these MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding. And it was the nature of the MOU that the Portland police objected to in 2011 or whatever that was, where Valerie Caproni had to go to Portland and convince them, no, you need the FBI to have this MOU. I mean, and by the way, remember, MOUs are not binding agreements. It's just sort of this like loose memorandum of understanding. They are not enforceable. It's not a contract. But it does reference like other contracts or, reimbursement and certain things that would entice the police force. They're going to give them equipment and overtime, funds for overtime. I think cops love that. So we also know that the JTTF in New York, the NYPD JTTF, was the very first one. And in 2017, I think, James Comey at some NYPD dinner or meeting or something like that. Look, we've got sanitation police over there. So there's all these different units of police. But Comey referred to the New York, NYPD JTTF as the granddaddy of them all. And I mean, that SRG unit, that's a lot of cops. I've seen, many of them together at a time. Who knows how many are in that unit? You're driving the wrong way, you know that? You're driving the wrong way, you know that? It's dangerous. You speak English?
No, I don't speak English.
Okay, learn how to ride a fucking bike. You're driving the wrong way, stupid. People get upset that I'm yelling at these morons on bikes. Not really, though. It's just trolls and, George's brother and stuff. But look, here, see, this is the right direction to be riding a bicycle in, and that guy is going to cause an accident. What's happening now is we've got trolls coming out of the woodwork. Let me just finish this thought on the JTTF, however. Cartoon, most slippery thing in the world, a banana peel. Yeah, so the JTTF, it's basically the FBI coming in and rewriting the rules for your police force. And the problem that the Portland, Oregon police force had was, according to them, It was requiring their force to do things that were unconstitutional, like gather intelligence on people based on their religion or their political ideologies. And Portland police didn't want to do that. FBI, JTTF, they did. And remember, Valerie Caproni was the FBI general counsel. She was the one telling them, you gotta get this thing. And she's the same person who got yelled at by Democrat John Conyers, congressman, guy in the Judiciary Committee, who told her that she had broken the law, you know, hundreds of times or thousands of times. We got to check that document. You can actually read it yourself. It's part of the Twitter coup. It's linked in the Twitter coup. If you go to Substack, that's free to read. I hope people will read that. It's incredibly important document, and we've had, you know, Schellenberger and Taibbi come out with their new Twitter files drop, which really seems like they just watched a video that I sent them 2 years ago. Admittedly, they did do more research into areas that I just mentioned, and they did find some new and interesting information. I guess it's too early for the Chinese African market here. I'm not sure when they come out. But we know that these FBI MOUs compel police forces to do things that are unconstitutional, and the NYPD loves it. They're all over it. So I don't know what division of the NYPD, you know, handles this NYPD intelligence unit, but it does seem like having somebody like Ezra Frisch or Crackhead Barney, you know, they always have a cameraman with them, right? So they're going around, they're getting video. Look, just like I do, we look at these videos of events from years ago. It's like, hey, wait a minute, there's that person. We know this guy now. Here's Orrin Levi, here's his brother. Crackhead Barney, whoever. So I think it makes sense that the cops are doing the same thing. And rather than just having police or people who look like police walking around videotaping everything. Yeah, see, because that's usually the TARU guys. What does that stand for again? Technical Assistance and something unit? So those guys are usually video. I haven't seen them in a little while. I used to see those TARU people, and if memory serves, they were wearing similar color outfits as the community affairs. See, so I wonder, is that part of the intelligence unit? Community affairs. We'll have to look into that. But if it is, that would mean I'm right. Because if Ezra Frisch and Crackhead Barney and some of these other people, remember the Baphomet mask guy who was guarding the woman, I forget her name, somebody had her name, who was sticking the flyer, the banner in Laura's face. She had a guard with her who then, when I started trying to photograph him, he went to speak to an individual who looked like a regular press photographer. You know, she had the big cameras, she had an NYPD press badge. I've also noticed that there's certain journalists who they allow right into the middle of a melee, the police, and then there's other journalists who they don't. And it just makes me wonder, do they have these sort of loose understandings with some of these photo and video journalists where it's like, hey, if you get anything of the cops doing something bad, don't show that, and we'll give you access to stuff. You know, one of these, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. We won't arrest you. We'll give you access to these events that we won't let Jason into. I think that's happening because there's a lot of excellent hero photos of the NYPD on the cover of the New York Post. And sometimes those New York Post photographers get access. We should take a look at who took that picture of dead Epp on the gurney. Because remember, in the Bronx, what's that guy's name? We got to go back to the Max Azzarello videos, but I had contacted that guy, David was his name? David D'Angelo or something like that. That's not it. Anyway, it's going to be on one of those Max Azzarello videos. I called him up because his name was on the photo of Max Azzarello in Collect Pond Park. But his photo, I went to Getty Images or wherever, maybe not Getty, but he has like there's a Ridgeback. He had like a stock photo thing. And I went there, and the date on it was the day before Azzarello lit himself on fire. But the photo was released with the news story of Azzarello setting himself on fire, so that if you didn't look into these details, they weren't misleading you, but it was really likely that someone would be misled into thinking that this picture was taken of Azzarello at the park, and then he set himself on fire, so he was definitely at the park. But in actual fact, and as confirmed by that guy David, New York Post photographer, that was taken the day before. Nobody can positively identify Azzarello in that park on the day he set himself on fire. And multiple EMTs and nurses and people like that were saying, wait a minute, how can they just pick up a burn victim by his wrists and ankles, throw him on a gurney, his skin would rip off and all this and that. So that seems like a cop hoax assisted by the New York Post photographer. And how did he react when I asked him about that? The second I said something about Max Azzarello's self-immolation being fake, I was like shaking the guy's hand, and he literally turned around mid-handshake and walked away. So obviously he didn't want to talk about that. I don't know that guy. Maybe that's a normal way for him to react, but in my opinion, normally, if someone says something outrageous like that, you might say, or the average person might say, fake self-immolation, what are you talking about? The guy set himself on fire. But I think that guy knew it was a fake immolation. So when you say something like that and they turn and walk away right away, that would be consistent with somebody who knows that I'm right and doesn't want to talk about it. Kind of like Norm. Today is a good day to retweet, repost that Norm video, because Norm is in there. He's going to be all over MSNBC. It actually got in there just in time, because to the extent that they have screwed this up by not sequestering the jury and all that sort of thing, you know, if that jury was home over the weekend looking at Twitter and saw Norm getting yelled at by me, not so much the yelling, but that concise 60-second explanation, maybe it made somebody say, wait a minute, that guy's right. That makes a lot of sense. I've seen a lot of evidence in that courtroom, but nothing makes it make sense except for what I said to Norm. They put Michael Cohen up to paying Stormy Daniels with his own funds. It just gets recorded. I mean, Trump obviously is not looking over every $35,000 expense in a mega million-dollar organization, particularly when he's got a lawyer who's working for him who's paid, you know, 35 grand a month. I mean, that's amazing. How the hell does an idiot like Michael Cohen, I really should have been an attorney, how does an idiot like Michael Cohen make $35,000 a month from Trump? We still don't really have a good explanation as to exactly why Trump would hire an idiot like that, but he did. So yeah, it was, I just wanted to kind of check out the scene down there. I mean, again, if you really want to hear what's going on in court, I mean, we can't, obviously. They don't have cameras in there, so we'll hear it tonight when all the Turleys and Dershowitzes give their breakdown. But those guys are going to tell you, you know, about the appeal and this and that. My concern is they've so manipulated. It's a loud truck. They have so manipulated the jury rules. I mean, we spoke about this a little bit previously. The judge can't necessarily just walk in there and bang the gavel and say drag Trump to jail. But they can change the jury rules, and they can yell at Costello, and they can threaten to strike his testimony, and everybody on the news can give you the impression that if a judge doesn't like your witness, that has some bearing on the veracity of what the witness says. We need a lot of new regulations. I mean, hopefully the silver lining on all this is that it will motivate Congress to do something to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. But I mean, as of this moment, I'm actually very concerned about what will happen. Wow, that's ugly. We got a Bentley, I forget what that's called, Bentaya or something, this SUV. I think maybe they're just like stealing that two-tone idea from, maybe Rolls-Royce did it before Maybach, but I don't think that looks good. I'm concerned right now because people like James Comey and Norm Eisen are like, oh yeah, 80% chance he's getting convicted. It sounds like they know about something, like the fix is in and blah, blah, blah. Because also, again, when Turley or Dershowitz or Andy McCarthy or any kind of experienced attorney analyzes this, Larry Klayman did this all the time when I would ask him about things, they're analyzing it from the standpoint of somebody who still can't believe the things that I'm saying, that these judges are so thoroughly corrupt, that Merchan I mean, look, his daughter is getting all these millions of dollars. Is he really worried? How old is Merchan? 60-something? He's probably thinking, you know what, this is the last hurrah. Even if I get kicked out as a judge, we're gonna totally blow out Trump, and somebody's made a deal with him where he's getting enough money to last him and his daughter for the rest of their lives. And I think that's all he's gonna care about, really. He doesn't care. He's not gonna need to go into legal practice after this and worry about his professional reputation. He doesn't care about carrying on as a judge. He's a hatchet man. And I think what they want to do is they want to convict Trump so that Biden can just make a speech that Trump is now the first guy to be a convicted ex-president and you can't have him running and blah, blah, blah. Because that's what they want. They want their simple evidence for the simple-minded. Trump got convicted. Don't pester me with all the details about the fact that we've got a state law, if we've got a district attorney, New York State, enforcing a crime that doesn't exist, that has to do with a federal election that they don't even have jurisdiction over. So that's what I'm saying. So many things that shouldn't, that's not the way it works, that shouldn't happen. I love it when people tell me, that's true, that shouldn't happen. This fucking asshole. That shouldn't happen. Like I used to, sometimes I call tech support, and it's like, yeah, I turn the thing on and I push this button and do that, and nothing, it doesn't work. And they say, oh, well, that shouldn't happen. It's like, right, I know it shouldn't happen, but that's why I'm calling you, because it's happening. So all this stuff that shouldn't happen has already happened, and I fully expect, in the most crooked way possible, they're gonna convict Trump. Because then we've got from now until November of them screaming, he's a convict. See, they always like to do this. They don't want to deal, they lie about what the facts are. And while you're still busy trying to explain the facts, they're on to the next lie and the next lie and the next lie. And in court, the best analogy I can make is those pegs that mountain climbers use. You climb up, you hit it, you place a peg. Climb another 10 feet, place a peg. Another 10 feet, another peg. And the idea is you fall and you're not going to go past one or two pegs. You're definitely not getting all the way down there to the third, fourth, fifth peg down. That's what we're dealing with here. The fact that the statute of limitations has expired, or that this isn't even a law that a New York State court has jurisdiction over, that's 7, 8, 9, 10 pegs down. We're not going to get to that. And these guys are all thinking about, oh, what are we going to do on appeal? Guess what? It's not going to matter. Because if he wins, the appeal is out the window. And if he's convicted and they smear him with that, That's all they're trying to do. And in fact, it's not even necessary that they get enough people convinced that Trump is a criminal that they won't vote for him. They're just going to blast that on the news so that when they cheat, it's plausible. Oh, then they'll say, yeah, Trump won or lost because he was convicted. And people say, no, that's not true. But they'll say, yeah, that's what did it. 91 million people voted for Joe Biden. More people than are alive in America voted for him because of this conviction. So that's what it's about. It's about, set dressing so that they can go to the next act. Very, very upsetting. But this is all social engineering, and I think that they're not going to give up. The other thing I saw this morning was some other lawyer now who I'm not familiar with, I forget his name, came out with an article about how Trump has other criminal convictions coming. And it's just so astounding how the entire legal system is just corrupted, weaponized. And by the way, even if Trump wins, is he going to be able to cut through this and prosecute anybody? We're still going to have all the same U.S. attorneys there. I mean, he could fire them and bring in other ones, but who are you going to get? We had Kash Patel talking to Tim Pool. It was a little hard on Tim Pool for wearing a beanie and sneakers to interview the president, but upon further consideration, he was at the Libertarian conference, so I guess being true to that, dressing sloppily is, I don't know, it seems like Tim did a very good interview with Trump. They got some good questions there, and he was quite prepared. And he did an interview with Kash Patel prior to that, who had some good suggestions about canceling the security clearances of all these people. Why didn't Trump do that during the 4 years that he was president? Just cancel Brennan Clapper. I don't know. There's people who are going to say, oh, it's because Trump is in on it. I haven't seen that evidence. It doesn't seem to make sense to me. I think if that were the case, we'd be done with this by now and he would just not be running, although, I don't know. They've got an explanation for everything. We'll have to see. It's hard to say which way this is going to go. I mean, if it's a hung jury, that's pretty good. I'm not sure exactly what happens then. I guess the district attorney needs to decide if they're going to, bring the case again, or I don't know what. But I guess the judge is doing all this stuff against the rules with the anticipation that it'll be overturned in, on appeal. And I think all these regular lawyers I'm talking about, when they're used to dealing with regular cases, the appeal is very important because their client is not in the same circumstance as Trump with a, once in a lifetime opportunity of this election. That's all they're trying to do, is knock him off the ball for that small period of time when everybody is going to be voting. And I mean, when you think about it, it's a narrow objective, and they might be able to achieve it. That's what I mean. It's a touch and go right now. We don't know what's going to happen. So I wanted to also get back to some of the lawfare and social engineering that I'm dealing with, because again, it seems to be sort of directly connected to all this stuff with Trump, in as much as I get into exposing Norm and Ben Wittes, two people who are very, very important to this, who maybe not that many people know about. 1.5 million Norm tweet. Now, many more people know. If you haven't seen that tweet, that post on X, please follow me on X at JG_CSTT. That reminds me, there is a malicious social engineering attack underway on X. Right, so this all goes back to that stupid woman, Julie. Remember her? She's the one who, is got the Felix Sater research blog, who just behaved super strangely as far as, I'm interviewing Felix Sater, and you would just think if anybody contacts you to talk about this, I mean, it's not like she's got a blog about Donald Trump or Elon Musk or somebody that everybody knows about. It's like this very detailed blog about an extremely obscure person. You would think if somebody called you having interest in this, you'd at least communicate with them a little bit, but not this person. And she's also got Patrick Byrne on there. I mean, the thing just reeks of being a social engineering blog to promote whatever idea it is that I think somebody's got to pay her to do that. It doesn't make sense to me that you would, she said she spent thousands of hours on that. She's also separately said that she had a career previously with a 6-figure job as a project manager. So, I mean, she's sharing all this information about herself. It seems like that was at EDS, Electronic Data Systems, Ross Perot's company. I don't know that much about electronic data systems, but I bet now that I'm talking about it, there's going to be somebody who does. I do know that at some point Ross Perot hired a bunch of mercenaries, some people from electronic data systems were kidnapped or something. They were working at some international location. This is something I should look into further, but I think they were kidnapped, taken hostage, and Ross Perot hired a bunch of mercenaries to rescue them. And I just wonder who those mercenaries were. Was it Eric Prince? Did Blackwater exist at that time? Did this little EDS endeavor, did it play any role in Blackwater being created? Now, do people find it interesting that there's no weed and no skateboarders right now? Does this have anything to do with NYU graduation? Because see, when they demonstrate that they can clear this park effectively and make it peaceful, it causes me to wonder why they don't do that all the time. It goes into this same kind of thought process as, are the police hiring demonstrators and counter-demonstrators to wave flags in my face and intimidate me at these protests? I mean, the next question would be, if they are doing that, why? But it's interesting to see. Wow, that sounds like a pretty low jet. So anyway, Julie has continued to be just an idiot. I think I know what she was cluing into. She's very bad at communicating, or either that or she's deliberately trying to confuse people. Both are possible. But when they're very concerned with my Andrew Weissman confrontation, which just happened right over there at NYU Law School. They're very concerned with that, in fact. So Julie, because what I said to Andrew Weissman, that I think you inserted an FBI, an intelligence asset to testify against Trump. That's what I said to Andrew Weissman last year in a extemporaneous, adrenaline-fueled confrontation in the middle of his turf. I mean, think about that, if you've ever been to one of those Q&As, there's a tendency to get a little nervous when it's your time to speak, or, whoever it is, even if it's Oliver Stone or whatever, you stand up to ask a question and you're like, okay, I don't want to look like an idiot in front of all these people. What exactly am I going to ask? Is Oliver Stone, big moment, he's looking at me, I'm going to be stupid. So same thing, you got all this adrenaline running, and you're trying to get out all these ideas. And also, I don't know, I basically know the first thing I'm going to say, but I didn't know he was going to say, I don't know Felix Sater. And other people are listening to that. One person said, no, he said, I've known Felix Sater, and then you cut him off. And I said, no, that's not correct, because you're listening to it on a recording on the cell phone through this microphone with Andrew Weissman all the way across the room. When I was there, I could hear it a lot more clearly in my ears. And he definitely twice said he doesn't know Felix Sater. And what's interesting is, they were recording a podcast, so technically there should be a clear on-mic recording of Andrew Weissman and everything that he said. But of course, the podcast that they released did not include the Q&A, and I don't think he's going to want you to hear that, because that's the segment of the conversation in which he's made to look a fool. But she was I had forgotten that I said that to him. And, if I had said that Felix Sater was an FBI asset, that would have been because he signed an agreement with Andrew Weissman while he was at the Department of Justice. This is the 1998 agreement, United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York. This is a civilian court. You don't have military stuff happening, and there is Felix Sater and Andrew Weissman. So I don't understand, because see, the other thing that's interesting about this, and by this I mean this whole Felix Sater, Andrew Weissman, General Flynn dust-up, George's mentally ill wife-swapping brother seems equally interested in this. He was in the comments of a YouTube video the other day trying to explain that, oh no, the DOJ, they execute agreements with Defense Intelligence Agency assets. Why would that be? Why would the U.S. Army and Army intelligence, first of all, compromise the confidentiality of what they're doing with an asset like that? That doesn't make sense. Why would a civilian law enforcement thing get into an agreement with a guy who's serving with the DIA? And also, Felix told us that he was recruited by the DIA well before 1998. So what the hell is Dave talking about? Sounds like he's trying to deflect people away from some fact that a lot of people there seem to not like. Because remember, General Flynn, unblocked me after 2 years to make a comment on that Andrew Weissman video. Why? Why would he do that? And then you'll look at it and say, oh, but Jason, he's making a positive comment. He's saying he's all for exposing the truth, and all of his followers were going to say, yay, Jason, General Flynn likes you. 1.5 million people who follow General Flynn. And Flynn is going to know that I'm an experienced social media user, and I'm going to know that when a 1.5 million user account starts commenting on my stuff, that will boost the account. That's the kind of thing that gets you more followers. So that's sort of like a nod, nod, wink, wink, shut up, here's $1,000 in an envelope, go away. And I picked up the envelope and said, thanks for the $1,000, but, and I'm making an analogy, obviously, there was no payment, but if you said something to somebody like, hey, if you walk in and this guy, and you walk into the restaurant, the maitre d' knows you're a criminal, and you say, hey man, and hand him $1,000, I think the implication is shut up and don't say anything. Point is, I took the bait and said, yeah, thanks for retweeting this video, but by the way, what the hell is going on with your brother making 3 times as much money as Patrick Byrne for less hours? And why is he getting reimbursed through an LLC instead of getting paid like Patrick Byrne? And why is Patrick Byrne getting paid at all if he's a mega millionaire donating to your thing? And there are a bunch of people who are saying, hey, wait a minute. That's a good point. Because I'm not just saying it. Every time I say it, I'm putting the 990 there. So there's a lot of people who are just saying like, ooh, I don't know you, and I like Flynn, so I'm not going to listen to what you're saying. And I'm not asking anybody to listen to what I'm saying. I'm telling people to look at the evidence and ask Flynn to explain the evidence. He won't explain it. If he's not lying, there would be a good explanation, and he'll just never explain it. So, this is the apartment that Weather Underground blew up. See how this one is kind of oddly sticking out, and all the other ones, I'm surprised they let them do that. And I don't know what the purpose of that is other than to look interesting. I mean, frankly, just being a brick face thing fitting in with the rest of the buildings, I don't even know that that's that interesting. I wonder who lives there. You know that this townhouse was blown up by the Weather Underground?
No.
It was.
Really?
See, well, look at it. It's different than all the others, right?
Yeah.
You know what the Weather Underground is?
No.
Oh, man. It's a domestic terrorist organization that Barack Obama was part of.
Oh, really?
Look that up.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Take it easy.
I might just struggle.
Just educating people one at a time. Now, that's 22. Dustin Hoffman lived like either next door or across the street or something when that thing blew up. But they're all super interested in this confrontation of Andrew Weissman. And I think it is because even if Dave is correct and the Department of Justice and Andrew Weissman are in charge of signing deals with Defense Intelligence Agency military assets, that seems problematic if they're doing it, and it doesn't seem like the type of thing that the average person knows. So that's kind of weird. The other thing that's been going on is there's this, so there's this spoof campaign going on. This is very interesting. Somebody spoofed my my Twitter. Now this is Richaf Lurie _28. I think that could be a Twitter account associated with Richard Lurie, whose name appears on this document, which was created on June 21st, but filed in the court on June 18th. Lurie is a clerk. So this is the spoofed account. I'm blocked. You'll notice it's underscore before JG _CSTT. So it's slightly different. And this spoof account is sending DMs to Crowdsource the Truth viewers saying, hey, Patriot. That looks like the kind of mail, DMs I've gotten from Flynn, where he's got the American flag in there and stuff. But the point is that the other thing is that spoof account at underscore, it was created March 2014. How the hell could they do that? I didn't create at JG _CSTT until June of 2023. So someone could create a new account now and give it a name so similar that it's likely to fool you. But how did they do that in 2014? It doesn't make sense. And other people point out, you can't change the @ username, you can change the screen name. I mean, obviously someone could change it. Twitter is software. Elon Musk could change it. Anybody working at Twitter could change it. Somebody who knows how to hack Twitter could change it. Somebody with some kind of special relationship with Twitter could change it. But just look at that again. Let's look at that again. So the reason why I showed that Richaf Lurie account is because that was also created in March of 2014. And the thing that I found that was weird about it, see, it's got 80 followers and it's following 98. If you dig into that Twitter account, you will see that all of those followers and all of the accounts it's following are blank, just like that Richaf Lurie 28 account. And they're all created in March of 2014. Now, we've been talking about this since about 2020. This whole Richard Lurie issue came up when George, or his brother, posing as George, filed a document in the Eastern District of Michigan, U.S. District Court. And the Eastern District of Michigan has actually a more sophisticated process for pro se filing than they have in New York. They've got a nice web page that they've made. Perhaps Julie contracted to them. She's a skilled web developer. I don't think so though. But they've got a sophisticated web page where, it's like an interface that it says like, click here to upload your document. It's scanning it for viruses and checking the file size. Okay, your document is okay. There's another asshole riding a bike on the sidewalk.
Fuck you.
Yeah, fuck you, you son of a bitch. So that person is going to injure somebody, and people say, oh, Jason's an old man telling people to keep off the sidewalk. Anybody saying that is pro-crime. You want, that guy's got a mask on, so if he injures you with the bike, there's no license plate on it. Even if he's captured on a traffic camera, you're not going to know who he is. So these guys are riding around, injuring people. There's multiple people who have died from that. And they're riding around on the sidewalk, injuring people, overloaded with shit. They don't care. You're going to hurt somebody on an electric bike. It should be illegal. You speak English, right?
Yeah.
Get that bike off the sidewalk.
Oh, okay.
Off the sidewalk. This fat lady with the thing on the sidewalk. So anyway, there's a huge movement in New York right now that's very upset about this. But the point is, we got bicycles not following the lights, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, fuck you, you fat bitch. So the point is, they're freaking out about this whole encounter with Andrew Weissman. So Julie, the first day, said a lot of confusing stuff about the document. Now she's saying she never said that it didn't exist. The point is, I said to Weissman in 2023 that I think he had an intelligence asset planted to testify against Trump. And one of Julie's main talking points was that Sater never testified against Trump. But see, she's mixing and matching things that I've said over the course of years. Excuse me. There's an unattended bag right around the corner there. You guys should take a look at it.
Thank you.
Right here. See, that could be anything. Let's have the cops do something. Anyway, that's what I said to Andrew Weissman in 2023. Okay, fine. Felix didn't testify against Trump. To put a finer point on that allegation, I believe Andrew Weissman inserted a military intelligence asset to enable a scheme that Weissman calculated with Norm and other people from the Lawfare Institute and the Brookings Institution to entrap Trump. And whether Felix knew it or not, he was part of that. Okay? Now, what's separately come out of this is that we now know that Julie and General Flynn and Dave, George's brother, and Patrick Bergie all really do not like me talking about Andrew Weissman, Felix Sater, and this 1998 agreement, and I believe it's because Felix Sater probably was a translator for a DIA team that included Flynn. And I say probably because I don't know. This is a guess. Based on the evidence that I've seen and the way all these people are acting, that would make sense. You know, if Felix is just a guy who's making deals with Andrew Weissman, all this crazy activity around my confrontation doesn't make sense. But if they don't want people to know the facts and details surrounding that 1998 agreement or exactly what Felix was doing, like we've discussed this, it doesn't seem plausible that Felix Sater, a public school guy with no military experience, no mujahideen experience, he's suddenly going all over doing these tremendous military intelligence activities. Makes a lot more sense that a team of lifelong military operators, military intelligence people like Michael Flynn would be in Afghanistan dealing with the most dangerous people around. And Felix, serving as a Russian translator, I imagine. I've never been to Afghanistan, but, you know, if you want to get into arms dealing in Afghanistan, I guess there's a lot of Russians involved, and being able to speak Russian is quite helpful. So again, that's just my current hypothesis based on what we know about this, that it makes sense that Felix Sater would be working with a team. And just, I mean, this is an insane reaction from all these people who seem to be hovering around Flynn. We've also learned that the Flynn intelligence group has a subsidiary, or just a totally separate company, which is Flynn, F-I-G, what is it? Flynn Intelligence Security. It's a cybersecurity firm. And we know that cybersecurity has a very broad definition. Mitigating disinformation falls in the category of cybersecurity, and disinformation encompasses anything that they don't agree with. So it doesn't have to be false, it's just that they don't like it. So Bergie, it's also interesting because he was like, oh, you tagged me, that's what I'm doing here, you tagged me. And there were all these idiot accounts trying to back up Bergie, that, oh, here's where Jason tagged Bergie. But I dismantled that, and then they deleted it because they don't want people to see the evidence of me making them look foolish. But I've discovered something else that makes them look foolish. A week ago, during Web of Deception, which I really encourage people to watch that. Get onto odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth or any of the other sponsorship platforms and check out last week's show. Because what was happening is, we're talking to John Cullen, and I noticed George's brother in the chat. And I would have forgotten about this, so I'm thankful that I made a comment during the show. I said, oh, look, George's brother is in the comments talking about Patrick Bergie. Now, I don't know, I'd have to go back and check if I still have those comments. Probably I do. But just the fact that he was talking about Bergie a week before somebody contacts me on Twitter and says, oh, you should interview Bergie. Remember when I've spoken about forcing the card, right? A lot of people will think, oh, well, that's just a random occurrence. Somebody said talk to Bergie. Jason tags Bergie in a post. You know, I mean, there's certain things that they can do. What do they call it? Nudging. Yeah, they've spoken about that in the Durham report. Nudging is going in the comments and talking about Bergie, having random unknown Twitter accounts tell me that I should interview Bergie, and then something happens with Bergie, and now here's Bergie. And it seems like Bergie has appeared organically. But no, George's brother was talking about Bergie a week before. And so, I mean, I guess I had thought about Bergie, but I mean, this just reiterates how unimportant the guy is in my mind. I mean, yeah, Dave was, you know, typing his name right there in the chat, and I mentioned it to Cullen, but the only reason I even remembered that was that I happened to be, you know, posting that Cullen video somewhere, and, you know, you click on it and it starts playing, and I'm copying the URL, and just the section that it was playing at was me saying, oh, George's brother is in the comments talking about Bergie. And so last night when I found that, I was like, wait a minute, this is the show from last week. So Dave is obviously trying to inject Bergie, and now it's starting to make more sense, because remember, when I first interacted with Bergie 5 years ago in 2019, it was, again, he just showed up on Twitter, and I said, oh, who is this? The 41-year-old private, or whatever it was, whatever his handle was at that time, Shadow, Net, whatever. I think they inserted him on me then. They forced the card back then. Because remember, right after 4, like, right in a row interviews that people were like, wow, this is exciting breakthrough information. he goes directly to George Webb. Why did he do that? Why George Webb? Why not any of the hundreds of other independent YouTube journalists that he could have gone? He goes right to George Webb. Maybe that's a coincidence, but it seems like what would happen if George's brother and this team of morons that are on me for the past 7 years tried to, get Bergie insinuated into my whole sphere of operation here. The other thing that's interesting is when Bergie showed up after I tagged him, when an unknown person said you should interview him 1 week after George's brother was talking about him in the comments. I don't know who that unknown person was, and frankly that tweet could be deleted now. I might not ever find it. But I'm pretty sure that was a fake Twitter account, which now George's brother has created another fake Twitter account where he's saying that I'm working with George, that we're secretly working together, which absolutely we are not. I think people know that. That's what George and his brother have been doing all along. They claim to hate each other, but they've been working together to undermine this independent news world and social media, because obviously it was easy to anticipate that exactly what is happening was going to happen. I anticipated it, they anticipated it, lots of other people anticipated it. And so they must have said, we're going to need to mitigate disinformation, information that we don't like. That seems to be what's going on as far as I can tell. Because Bergie, I just posted a tweet that said, hey, I did some interviews with Patrick Bergie 5 years ago, so there's no need to interview him again. Here's one of the interviews. And then he's interacting with that tweet, but then right away he goes from that tweet to a tweet about Julie, and he starts defending Julie. He starts saying, oh, Jason's yelling at the cops, Jason's yelling at the bicycles. You'll notice those cops who went over to the suitcase I didn't yell at. If I had walked away and they did nothing, I would have turned around and yelled at them and said, do something. But when somebody leaves an empty bag like that, 99% of the time, it's just a homeless person who left it there and there's nothing in it. But if that 1% of the time when you read, hey, somebody exploded a building in New York City, you're the cops. Take a look at the damn thing. So thank you, cops, for doing that. But the point is, they're spreading all kinds of... Last week they said I was George's brother. Obviously that's wrong. Now they're saying I'm working with George. I'm... all kinds of ridiculous theories have come out. But I mean, this is an acute increase in effort right here since the whole exposure of Norm and I don't know if it's exactly to do with the exposure of Norm and Ben Wittes so much as the explosion of the Twitter account. It's getting much closer to an area where, this is an account that has some influence. I think 18,000 followers. Again, I'm not boasting. I'm just noticing that that's the type of thing that when you tweet something, now maybe several hundred or several thousand people will see it. And a successful tweet, we see several 100,000 or million will see it. Whereas previously I was tweeting stuff, 5, 6, 10 people would see it. They didn't care. So now they're much more concerned with mitigating the message. And they've spoofed the account. There's at least 2 fake Twitter accounts trying to be me. I told Twitter this thing is impersonating me, and they were like, oh, we need more information. I sent them my driver's license and all this, and they were like, oh, well, this looks like a company. We need company information. And it's like, what? So obviously, Twitter, and by the way, Julie doxed me, put my phone number right out on Twitter. That's a violation of their policy. Twitter has a lot of latitude with violations of their policies, and they accused me of violating that same policy of sharing private information, except in my case, what I had shared was a P.O. box that was on a government document that I downloaded from the FARA office, the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So that was public information, and it wasn't even the person's home. It was a public retail P.O. box, UPS store. And to this day, the Crowdsource the Truth Twitter account is locked as a result of that dispute. So I didn't share private information and I was shut down. Julie did share my private information and nothing at all happened to her. How does that work? How are they able to create Twitter accounts in 2014 and then change the username in 2024? Who has the ability to do that, Adam Sharp? Somebody who knows something about Twitter that I don't. I don't know how that works. It's all very interesting. And Julie thinks that because I said she's a bad mother, that somehow that's going to mitigate my claims against her in court. First of all, I've arrived at the opinion that she's a bad mother for a number of reasons. Primarily because she's so foolish that she's willing to risk the financial safety of her family over a Twitter beef rather than just retracting her stupid false statements and apologizing. That's why I think she's a bad mother. What's she going to do when her 15-year-old son has no money because she's been sued? That's stupid. I think a good mother would have said, you know what, I don't need to be in these Twitter beefs. She could have just said, I don't know anything about Goodman. I'm not getting involved in this fight. He can say whatever he wants about Felix Sater. Why does she care so much about what is said about Felix Sater? I mean, I think I know why, but what is her plausible explanation? I don't know. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens with this Trump trial. I'm going to be on Coffee and a Mic with Mike Farris later today, so tune into that. This is my new neighbor here. That guy's laying on the street every day. And please become a sponsor of the show. Visit odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com.